faces that are bright and colors that are beautiful and ready to engage. We request persons who are at the back, there's still more seats in front, please move forward. There are more seats. We request you to move closer to the fire. It's cold out there, come close to fire. The President is entering. Please stand. Yeah? Somebody is indicating to me that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening. Or should I say Amanda? Thank you very much, Mr. President, the Premier of the province, ladies and gentlemen, my learned friends, Dr. Nabo, bonke abantu abafundileyo abala. I'm going to ask you to stand up so that we start by singing the National Anthem.
Thank you.
Did we miss the verse there? I just immediately remember Ras Dumisani. Now, worse if it is recorded. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for responding to this invite to the conversation with our president in the new dawn. Today is an important occasion in the context of the new dawn for us in the African National Congress to engage with our brothers and sisters in the public discourse and not talk past each other on very difficult issues that confront our nation, because nothing is easy in the conversation. But we know that somewhere, somehow, we talk past each other. And the conversation is dominated largely, not by issues that affect us, but by largely personal attack and not how we take South Africa forward. So today we have the President of the Republic and the President of the African National Congress to talk to us, not only one-way conversation, but to engage with all of you. And we want to thank you once more for responding to this invite. This is Tumamina time. Those who want to be Tumat, you are welcomed. This is Tumamina time. This is the new dawn. We know that there are others who debate the new dawn, but the new dawn means last year is not the same as this year. And that is what it means. In political and ideological terms, it means the conjuncture. We can unpack that. And when you get into Twitter and you get some people trying to debate there, but 140 characters or so, they can't get into the debate. So tonight, Mr. President, we're going to be engaging. And I'm going to call Professor. Okay, I'm going to call Professor Musuna to come. Hey. Mushuma. Ne? I'm going to call Comrade Professor Mushuma to come and welcome all of you. And then he'll be followed by the acting chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Comrade David Makura, and immediately the president, and will open the floor for the conversation to begin. Prof.
Comrade Mbalula, we are full of energy. Mr. President of the Republic of South Africa, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, the Premier of Gauteng, Comrade David Makura, of course, Comrade Mbalula, the head of elections of the ANC, the whole country. Members of the National Executive present here, PEC members, regional leaders and senior leaders from our organizations, from Parliament and other regions in our province, in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to welcome you to this wonderful province, Gauteng. Gauteng boasts of accommodating 75% of the 4.7 million academics, professionals, suburban and business. And therefore, this is the place to be, to start the conversation. It's a conversation of its own kind. In the past, the leaders of organizations would speak to us. Now we enter into a dialogue. A dialogue presupposes that when you come with your own ideas, when you leave here, you'll leave this place having been changed, because there is going to be a feast of ideas. And there's going to be a way in which we identify our common ground for the purposes of serving our communities. The Tumamina vision of society, the new dawn, it's a summon to a new form of stewardship, national stewardship, which presupposes that in our respective spaces, we have to ask the question, what should I do? What change can I bring about? As a professional, as an academic, as a financial worker, as a doctor, in whatever station you find yourself, it's no longer a situation where we identify the problem and then we pass it on to somebody to solve it for us. When we confront the problem, we say, what can we do? Each and every great nation can only succeed when its intelligentsia participate in shaping the destiny of that nation. And you are here to do that tonight. But more importantly, the point of departure is our ideological standpoint. What informs, influences what we do? We have what you call preferential option for the poor. Preferential option for the poor is what guides our action, unless those that are marginalized, those that are poor, those that have no names in the street of their own countries, begin to discover their identities and their personhood, we shall not have done what is expected of the professionals in this country. So I invite you to enter into this journey of embracing Tumamina, a new dawn, which summons us to a new form of stewardship, in which we become the shapers of our own destiny and the destiny of our country. I want to invite you to sit back, relax, use your mind. Let's shape together what South Africa can become. And as I look around here with a wealth of experience, wealth of knowledge, let's use that knowledge to bring about change in our own country. I thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Professor Musuma. Huh? Musuma, yes. Without any waste of time, we're live on Twitter. You can participate in this discussion, even if you don't talk, by following hashtag Tumamina on Twitter and my ANC. And we are live on television. Even if they can switch off the cameras, the message is going. On Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Premier Makura, Comrade Acting Chairperson. We have also our Provincial Secretary, who was by mistake introduced as an acting premier in a funeral today, Comrade Hope Papo. That there is no reshuffle, he's still the secretary. So it was a mistake. We also have fellow members of the National Executive Committee. We'll introduce them one by one. I saw Ronald Lamola is here. And I also saw Sis Lindy is here. And I will not call them ministers because this is the ANC, National Executive Committee. I saw Comrade Tabang Makwetla. And I also saw Comrade Barbara Creasy. And Ntate Mathole Motshega, Dr. Mathole Motshega. Babangata di Dr. Mo ANC mo. I will introduce others as we move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our program director, Comrade President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. I need to pronounce your first name properly, Matamela. Matamela, and members of our National Executive Committee who have already been acknowledged, who are here, ministers, deputy ministers, members of our Provincial Executive Committee, MECs, mayors, and I need to acknowledge that Provincial Secretary, in our Provincial Executive Committee, we have a professor, and his name is Professor Musuma. He is a member of our Provincial Executive Committee. And in our Provincial Executive Committee, we have several doctors in there and lawyers. And bear this in mind, I'll come back to this point. Professionals and academics who have honored us with your presence here this evening, fellow compatriots. On behalf of the organizers and the Provincial Executive Committee, I would like to welcome you all to the ANC President's Dialogue with Gauteng professionals and academics. The ANC has a long association and close affinity with academics and professionals in its history of evolution. The first generation of black intellectuals and professionals and subsequent generations made up of lawyers, journalists, and doctors were central to the formation of the ANC and in particular to the drafting of its very first constitution and policies, and subsequently its transformation into a potent force for national liberation. The second generation of black intellectuals and professionals came together in the 1940s, and this was a young generation to form the ANC Youth League. This was a generation of well-educated young people who played a central role in the transformation of the ANC into a very effective parliament of the people. The professionals and academics continued to play a key role in the organizations of the people after the ANC was banned in 1960, together with other liberation organizations, especially in the 1970s and 1980s. And these professionals participated in the trade unions, the women's organizations, the youth organizations, and the civic organizations. And many of them gave their knowledge and skill to the cause of liberation of our country. Professionals worked together with other working class leaders, especially trade union leaders, some of whom had the sharpest intellectual edge, even though they hardly had formal education. It is the alliance of working class leaders, these professionals and academics, which infused intellectual life and ideological dynamism in our movement in different generations of its evolution. The advent of our democracy and progressive policies over the past 2 decades saw the growth, the exponential growth, particularly of the black professional strata. We in the ANC celebrate this because it is the policies that we put forward that opened opportunities where it was very, very difficult under apartheid for this growth of the black professional strata. So as the ANC, we will continue to forge a dynamic relationship with professionals and academics and their various organizations. And I saw a number of presidents this evening. Comrade President, there are a lot of presidents sitting here of different professional organizations. There are many presidents I saw here. So the ANC will continue to forge this relationship, especially in Gauteng province. We are very proud that we have a membership that reflects a significant presence of professionals and academics in our ranks, side by side with working class leaders, because this province is the heart of the industrial proletariat. So in the ranks of the ANC in Gauteng province, you find some of the brightest minds in our country. Half the time, we don't give them enough space to contribute in accordance from each according to ability. Half the time, they complain that they don't have space. But we want to say that our organization, especially in this province, and the support base of the ANC would not be what it is if it wasn't for the contribution of professionals, black and white, in the ranks of the ANC. And I want to say we need more as we move forward with renewal. We need more amongst the professional strata to participate in the ranks of the ANC. Organizational renewal belongs to you too, to participate in policy formulation, but to bring your skills to bear, as Professor Musuma said, in the effort of transforming this country. We know there are many challenges that face particularly black professionals and academics in the democratic era. I don't want to mention them. You are going to mention those challenges yourselves. But there are two particularly pressing issues that black professionals face. Those who are women, regardless of their professional standing, they still face patriarchy. And those who are black, regardless of their professional standing and qualifications, they still face the problem of white privilege. They face discrimination purely on the base. They are not always good enough. So if you are a lawyer or a CA, you are black, you are a woman, you are not always good enough. These are some of the challenges our nation faces. So this evening belongs to you. And this evening promises to offer you an opportunity and a platform to engage with our president on the issues that affect our nation and on the issues that affect your professions. One of the important things about being a professional is that the wall between being a professional and being a business person is very thin. In fact, for most black professionals, the route to being in business is through your profession. So a lot of you who are here will raise those issues, and our president is here. I want to say to NEC members who are here that since the December NASREC conference of the ANC, the NEC has been very busy and the president has been very busy. Some of you may forget that the president was only elected with this NEC in December. Some of you may think that it has been a long, long, long while. It's only 6 months. The president has been very busy. The National Executive Committee has been hard at work. The National Cabinet has been hard at work. The president has been to every province of our country with his morning walks. He has been to several SADC countries, and he has been to major global meetings in the world. He's also made some of very important decisions around governance, and some of these decisions are already impacting positively on the economy and governance. The first thing I want to say is that our president is very firm on radical socio-economic transformation. Our president is also very firm on clean governance. And he is very firm on the unity and renewal of the ANC. Both public confidence and business confidence are improving, but a lot more still needs to be done to fix both our country, especially our economy. A lot more needs to be done to ensure that our economy grows in an inclusive way. And when you talk about black professionals in particular this evening, that question of an economy that still excludes a large section of the population is something they deal with every day. A lot more still needs to be done to rebuild our public institutions, especially and including the law enforcement agencies. The President and his cabinet have gotten off to a very good start as part of doing the work that the ANC government is mandated. And I also want to say the NEC has gotten off to a very good start. What is left is you and I. So let us all lend a hand, and this is what this dialogue is also about. What can we all do to move our country forward? So, Mr. President, these are the professionals and the academics from Gauteng province. And as I said, many of them are participating in the political life of the ANC. And we want to see many more forge this journey with us of transforming our country, but particularly this heart of our economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David Makura, the Premier and Acting Chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng. The acting part will disappear very soon. He will be permanent. Without stifling democracy, and before I'm killed by ANC branches, I leave that to the conference. Comrade President, Comrade Makura, I've spoken about our president. We are hard at work. Just this week, the president was invited by the Muslim brothers and sisters just yesterday. And today, the president also paid a visit to the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and that is today. And today, this evening, the president is with us. So we are hard at work, and the president is hardworking, and it's for all of you to see. When we talk about the new dawn, we are obsessed with fixing people's issues, not only about our difficulties as a movement. And the president, in that regard, is leading from the front. Without any waste of time, I'm going to ask the president to the podium, President Cyril Ramaphosa, to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's be seated. Program Director, Acting Chairperson of the ANC in this province, in Gauteng, Comrade David Makura, Comrade Mbalula, members of the National Executive Committee, members of the PEC, Comrade Hope Babo, and a number of others who I see here, leaders of a number of professional bodies and organizations, and leaders of other religious organizations that are also here, friends and comrades, and ladies and friends. It is a real joy and a pleasure to have this opportunity to be amongst you. It is almost 2 years since we had an opportunity like this when we gathered, I think it was in 2016. So this has long been overdue. When we gathered, we talked about a whole number of issues, And at that meeting, a number of you spoke about the type of South Africa that you would like to see. And you also spoke about your frustration about where we were. And you also said that we were not in the most ideal place as a country, and you wanted us to regain direction. And at that meeting, we did articulate the fact that much as we needed to deal with all these challenges and problems, the ANC wanted your love back. And we said that even as couples squabble about this and that, whether it's money, whether it's children, whether it's everything else, there is still a space for love to be given back. So we said, give us your love back. And I guess your presence here today is clear demonstration that you have rekindled your love back to the ANC. We meet today after Nasrec. Nasrec was quite a defining moment for the African National Congress, and indeed we could say that it was also a defining moment for our country. Nasrec was held under the theme, Remember Tambo, towards unity, renewal, and radical socio-economic transformation. That is what we had wanted the almost 5,000 delegates who descended on Nasrec to remember. And the conference elected a leadership, and it's a wonderful architecture of leadership, as I've always said. It is a leadership that mixes different approaches, different skills, different experiences, and with this leadership, we are finding one another as we are moving South Africa forward. It is not a leadership that could have led to a winner-takes-all, where one group after conference then hives off and says, we are going to form our own organization. This time round, we've kept everyone in the crawl, and we will all remain in the crawl. It is a given fact that in politics, there'll always be different approaches, there'll always be different perspectives, and the strength of the African National Congress is that after 106 years of existence, it has remained not only the oldest liberation movement on the continent, and now in its latter days, a political party which still has features of a national liberation movement. It has remained an organization that has sought to be the real parliament of our people, to bring together a cross-section of South Africans to be represented in one body that espouses the ideals that were set up by our founding forefathers of having a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and a prosperous South Africa. The ANC has remained faithful to that strategic objective, and it shall forever be faithful to that calling that was made 106 years ago. Now today, we interact with you as professionals. We interact with you as academics, as people who are in business, either running your own businesses or in professions in a number of existing businesses. And we remember the role that was played by intellectuals, professionals, people who were well steeped in their own ways of life in terms of professions. We remember the role they played in founding the ANC. These were people who had gone to be educated either inside the country, overseas. They came back and said they want to make a contribution to the better development of our country, and they decided that the ANC should be formed. And as I look at all of you, indeed all of us here, I see us almost walking in the footsteps of the founding fathers of this great movement. That today, gathered here, is what I would call the brain trust of the nation. The real brain trust of the nation, the brain trust that existed, that was there in 1912, a brain trust which we could say is also here today. In 1912, they were brave, they were courageous, they were visionaries, they were forward-looking, and they wanted to make a contribution to the development of their country. 106 years later, I would venture to say, yes, John Langalibale Ledube, yes, Pixley Kaisa Kaseme, yes, Sol Plaiki, yes, all the leaders who were there, Dade Makhato, and all of them, that today you could even say you have a replica amongst the many people who sit here, who are fired up by the need to make a contribution to take this country forward. And I say fired up advisedly because that's why you are here. If you were not fired up, you would not be sitting here. Our country, as it did then, in 1912, still today, it needs the skills, the ideas, the innovative prowess of professionals, of intellectuals to build this country going forward. And at our conference, we even said we wanted to build a social compact that would be there for growth and the transformation of our country. We elucidated this in our January 8th statement. We spoke about this in January, where we called for a broad front of social partners to unite, to mobilize behind a common program of transformation. As you are here today, we see you as being part of that broad front, a broad front of people who are patriotic, of people who want to see South Africa transforming and moving forward. And we look to you to be part of defining that program and to be integrally involved in its implementation. So if you ever thought that there's a free dinner or there's free drinks, you've come to the wrong place. We want you here because we do want you to play that role. And you are playing a historic role, a role that was played by those who have come before us, because we're seeking to build this broad front, this social compact of people who will make a contribution in one way or another. During the SONA presentation, we spoke about the Send Me concept, Tuma Mina, where we said South Africans would like to be sent. I said, for starters, that as president of the ANC and as president of the Republic, I want our people to send me. But I don't want them to send me alone because it will be quite a lonely task. I want the people of this country to send people like us, not only to send the cabinet, not only to send the National Executive Committee of the ANC, but to send people like all of us who are seated here, because each one of us has a contribution to make. We each, in our own little corner, through our professions, through our talent, through our skills, can be sent. And I will define in a little while how I believe that can actually be manifested. And now is the time to harness the collective abilities and energies of all our people, particularly those who have know-how, particularly those in whom this country has invested so much in terms of the education that we have, so that all of us can put our shoulder to the wheel to grow our economy, to improve the lives of our people, to create jobs, to reduce poverty, and to transform our society. Comrade Malula has been talking about this concept, the New Dawn. The people of South Africa have embraced the New Dawn. Some are still trying to intellectualize about it, to try and find out what type of animal this is. But the people of our country in the streets of our townships, streets of our cities, in the pathways of our villages, have embraced the New Dawn. They welcome particularly the determination of the African National Congress not only to renew itself, but to rebuild itself, and also to lead a process of renewal across society so that we may return to the path upon which we had embarked upon in 1994. I met Archbishop Desmond Tutu today, this afternoon, and he said, "President, we are grateful for this new dawn." He says, even as I am here in the Western Cape in Hermanus, I can feel this new dawn, I can touch it, I can smell it, I see that we have now exploded on a new moment in our country. And he said, thank you to the ANC. Now, what this means, and I took a moment, let me immediately say to the leadership of the ANC, I took a moment to say to Archbishop Desmond Tutu that I would like to apologize on behalf of our movement, that we drove him to a point of despair. There was a moment when Archbishop Desmond Tutu lost despair about the trajectory our country was taking. And I said, I apologize. That almost brought tears to his eyes, as it did to mine, because it was important for a person like Arch Desmond Tutu, for us to say, we are sorry for the period that we've been through. Because, as I told him, I see you, Archbishop, as being the repository of the values that were espoused by the founders of our movement. You being the torchbearer and the standard bearer of the values that Nelson Mandela embraced and espoused. I said, I am dropping my head in apology because we deviated from that. Our conference, I told him, was able to deal with that we did deviate from that route. But colleagues, friends, we have found our way back to our pathway. We are back. The ANC is back. So it is for this that people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, even as he's in retirement, sees this new dawn. He's not really having an opportunity to be interacting with all of us, but he sees this new dawn and he says, may this With his own mouth, he said, "May this last forever and a long time." That's what he said. Now, since February, as one has been going through the length and the breadth of our country, many of our compatriots have been saying, "Mr. President, we want also to be sent. We want to know what we can do to help build this country. We want to join you in the Tumamina campaign of rebuilding our country and dealing with the challenges that lie ahead." And colleagues, it is this that is part of this new dawn, where all of us as South Africans are saying, what does this new dawn mean? It must mean that we must be sent, we must contribute to the further development of our country. If this new dawn is going to bring about real change in the lives of our people, there are a number of priorities that we will need to attend to with urgency and determination. We need, yes, to restore hope in the minds and hearts of our people about our seriousness in dealing with that which made their hope to plummet. One of those things that made their hopes to plummet is the whole problem and challenge of corruption. How we deal with corruption will define this new dawn. The new dawn must mean that we must be seen to be very serious about dealing with corruption. It must no longer come from our mouths that there are perceptions of corruption. It must now be, we are now going to deal with corruption, and we are going to be firm, and we are going to ensure that we root out corruption from the face of South Africa. And in rooting it out, we will not only be looking at the public sector, we will also look at the private sector, because that is where all corruption also is. So that we should no longer be a country that is defined in terms of, oh, South Africa, where there is so much corruption. We want our country to be defined as, oh, South Africa, that country of clean government, that country where they've rooted out corruption. We want to be there. As Brahiu Masekela said, when our country roots out corruption. Are you going to join us in doing so? We also, in order to give meaning to this new dawn, we need to return to the values of our forebears. Values and principles of integrity, principle of truthfulness, principles of doing things correctly, and principles of putting our people first rather than putting ourselves first. Those are the values that will define this new dawn. We want the new dawn to be underpinned by strong adherence to the rule of law, but we also want this new dawn to also be enveloped by a spirit of solidarity, so that as South Africans, particularly people like us sitting in this room, must have a sense that we live in a country that has enormous challenges. And one of the ways of addressing these challenges must be the way that we exercise our solidarity, exercise our compassion with our fellow citizens, so that we can do right by them. This new dawn must also be defined by active citizenry. In the National Development Plan, one of the things that we spoke about, a key pillar of how South Africa can really truly develop into a wonderful democratic country, is how we can get the citizens of our country to be active, not only to be active in protesting, but to be active in getting involved in addressing the challenges, to be active in dealing with the various problems that we deal with as a country, crime, dealing with a whole number of issues, education and what have you. That will define this new dawn that we're talking about. But it must also be a new dawn where leaders listen, where leaders listen to the people of our country, where we are able to give an ear. The journalist asked me and said, what can you say is the distinguishing feature of your leadership? And I said, I learned at the ringside, at the foot of a great leader, Nelson Mandela, who taught me and a number of others that one of the greatest things about leadership is being able to listen to other people. But more than that, get those who differ with you and also listen to them. So during the State of the Nation address, the wonderful moment was when I repeated Hugh Masikila's song, and Julius Malema was sitting there, and he whispered, he said, "Sing it." Now, for a moment I paused, and I said, should I take up Julius's challenge and sing it? And he repeated, he said, "Sing it." But what I was trying to say was that during that moment, we said we were going to set up quite a number of entities where we want to engage with our people. And some in the opposition said, yes, the summit, yes, this and this. And I said to them, the strength of doing this is to be able to bring together South Africans who have a contribution to make, who have views to put across, so that we engage everyone and come out with the best solutions ever. And this is precisely what I would say defines my style of leadership, which was Madiba's style of leadership. So I'm walking in his footsteps and saying, that is the best type of leadership, to listen. And those who hold different views, bring them even closer, as Madiba did, so that you can hear them more clearly. Because when you have done so, you come up with the best decisions ever. The other defining thing about aspect of this new dawn must be our ability to govern well, to create a capable state, a state which will never be regarded as a failing state or a failed state, a state which will govern to meet the interests of our people, the needs of our people, a state where we will know that everybody who is in the state is there to advance the interests of our people. But the most important part about the new dawn is how we should grow our economy so that we can create jobs, reduce poverty, and we need, in this regard, to take extraordinary measures, because even the moderate rates of growth that we have achieved before the global financial crisis in 2008 will not be good enough. What we now need is to increase the level of growth in our economy so that the new dawn must mean something real to our people as we implement the decisions and of the 54th conference. And of course, the new dawn in the end must also mean that we've got to move with speed, with urgency, to implement the decisions that were taken by the delegates who attended the 54th conference. And this is what forms the framework of what I believe this new dawn is all about. And I was saying to Bishop Tutu that there is a risk. The risk of this new dawn is that we do not meet the aspirations of our people. That is the risk. And I said to him, we've got on the National Executive Committee, we've got on the National Working Committee, colleagues who are sufficiently determined that we should address this risk and we should do everything that we can to meet the aspirations of our people. We also need to focus a lot on what can get us out of this low growth mode that we are in. And it is to this end that we want to focus on how we can grow our economy. And we've felt that one of the things that we can do, and there are quite a number, some of which I will touch on before I sit down so that you can engage, is to increase the level of investment in the productive sectors of our economy by going out into the whole country and into the rest of the continent and to the world to go and raise $100 billion, 1.3 trillion rand of investments in the next 5 years. Now, those who can count, as I told Archbishop Desmond Tutu today, I don't know what you are laughing at. Now, now, those who can count, $100 billion in today's exchange rate is 1.3 trillion rand. Now, Archbishop Desmond Tutu said to me, "Shoo, how do you finish counting all that money?" And I said to him, this is what we believe we should be able to raise, because if we can raise this amount of money into productive investment, we will then be able to lift a number of boats, a number of people in our country. We should be able to create jobs, because that is the biggest challenge that we face. And obviously, part of the investment drive is to improve conditions for doing business in our country. We are working to ensure that there is policy certainty. For example, as we finalize the mining charter, we are seeking to be an attractive destination also for mining. And many investors say that South Africa still remains the reservoir of a lot of minerals that still lie in the ground, and they would like to come and invest here. And they say, if you give us policy certainty, we can unleash those dollars that can come and be invested here. And we're also talking to local companies so that there is no mistake about this, that we are focusing only on foreign direct investment. We are focusing on domestic direct investment as we are focusing on foreign direct investment. And in the end, we believe that we should be able to draw much more from local direct investment. One of the things that I would like to see us do is to take this whole Africa integration process a lot further by encouraging a number of companies and individuals on the rest of the continent to come and invest here, because it is here where they can also make money, and it is here that we can have a mutually beneficial relationship. As it is now, a number of our own companies are investing in a number of countries on the continent. We want to reciprocate so that they can come and invest here as well. Now, the other issue that can help to make a meaningful contribution in the growth of our economy, much as other people believe that it may not be able to do so, is the resolution that was taken at our conference on land. The decision by our conference to accelerate land redistribution and undertake an agrarian revolution, and that this we should do through using a number of mechanisms. And one of those should be the expropriation of land without compensation to unlock the wealth, the energy of this land, which has been held in a few hands forever and a day since the days of colonialism. Now, that alone should be able to add an injection in the growth of our country. Now, some of you here are professionals in the finance world. Some of you are actuaries. Some of you are investment professionals. And one of the things that we will be doing, we'll be inviting quite a number of you to come and sit around a table with us, to begin to do your sums and do your calculations and begin to look through the looking glass and say, if we release land, what value are we going to be able to release into the hands of our people, and what value are we going to add to the economy of our country? Because I believe the land in our country, having been held by a minority, 87% of it from historical times has been land that has not been put to good use. We now have a great opportunity to put land to good use, to take it out of those hands, lazy hands I might say, and put it into the working hands of our people. Now, I would like, as we engage with you as professionals, to begin to do the calculation of saying, what value will this land add to the economy of our country? Because I believe that it will add a great deal to the economy of our country. We are also going, as we embark on this journey of seeing what we can do to grow the economy of our country, to see how best to embark on, yes, the process of changing the spatial architecture of our cities. As you know, our cities' spatial development was structured in the Apartheid Way of Group Areas Act, and we want to be able to release land near our cities. Quite a lot of land is either owned by government, owned by state-owned enterprises, owned by municipalities, and so on. And we are saying that land must be released and be given to our people so that they can live closer to where they work. And the pleasing thing is that our provincial government here under Comrade David Makura is already looking at the rapid release of land program, which is now going to be identifying land that lies fallow, land that is not being utilized, to release the land, because our people want to live near the cities, near where they work. Our people want houses. And at a meeting where I went with Comrade Makura, many of our people said, we know that building houses for us, yes, it's expensive and may take a long time. Just give us serviced sites so that we can build our own houses. Now, that is a great advance. So releasing land, enabling our people to live near where they work is going to reduce the cost of living for them, and it is going to release, personal expenditure that can be available for other things. Now, already we are now giving out title deeds. David Makura and the provincial government has embarked on a process of giving out title deeds on Fridays. Now, tomorrow, they are giving 1,067 title deeds here in Gauteng. Now, for you and I, who have our own homes, and who, having bought our homes, got title deeds, imagine our parents, our aunts, our uncles, who have forever lived in those houses since the 60s and the 70s, paying rental, and never got a piece of paper which says, this house is yours. David Makura is unlocking that, and he's doing a fantastic job. Now, we are going to be focusing also on the Agrarian Revolution to put the land that is lying derelict in the rural areas to work. We are going to embark on a massive project of ensuring that we produce our own food and we put our people back to work in the rural areas so that young people that we often see when we go to the rural areas who are loitering around doing very little are brought back into working the land. And a number of people, as one has gone around the length and the breadth of the country, they say, assist us, unlock this energy that we have, help us kickstart it. And once you've done that, Mr. President, you leave the rest to us. We will work the land, and we will give you a true agrarian revolution. I am longing for that. And of course, one of the other things that is going to help to give a boost to our economy as well is how we reform our state-owned enterprises. The state-owned enterprises were sewers of corruption, a number of them. They were like where the sanitation had clogged up. There was rot, there was filth, and there was deep corruption in those state-owned enterprises. We are rooting all that out right now. And by so doing, we are not even waiting for the State Capture Commission. We have hit the ground running. And we have said we are going to reposition our state-owned enterprises by making sure that we've got proper procedures, good people who are going to run them, and we've set up this Presidential State-Owned Enterprise SOE Council, where all the key state-owned enterprises in our economy are going to be overseen, where we are going to look at the balance sheet of every state-owned enterprise, scrutinize it properly, and see what is happening in each one, so that the balance sheet management is no longer in the dark corners of some funny office somewhere away from that state-owned enterprise. We want to do this because almost 30% of our economy is driven by what state-owned enterprises do. So the reforms that we are going to be introducing are going to be thorough and overarching. We are going to make sure that all of us are proud of the state-owned companies that our people own. One of the other things we are going to do, of course, is to build, which I referred to earlier, a capable state. What happened in the Northwest really gave us the biggest and the loudest wake-up call. Building a capable state means that the state has to operate properly at the national level, at the provincial level, and at the local government level. And that is where there are a number of failures. We've identified those failures. We are going to work extremely hard to ensure that our local government serve the interests of our people. We're going to work with Comrade Pakstow and Salga to make sure that we reposition our local governments throughout the length and the breadth of the country. If there ever was anything that I want to focus more attention on, it is precisely this at local government level, because that is where our people live. The lessons that we are drawing from the Northwest, Section 100 takeover, are going to help us to see how we can have what we would call an early monitoring system, so that we are aware and alive at an early stage about some of the things that may be going wrong, not only at the provincial government level, but also at the departmental level. So we will be focusing on that, because we want to reach out to the ideals or implement the ideals that are set out in the National Development Plan about having a capable state, so that whoever looks at our government must be proud that yes, in South Africa, we do have a capable state that serves the interests of our people and does not serve the interests of individuals of certain families. I want to conclude, because I think you want to interact. The issue of employment, particularly youth employment, is top of mind in everything that we do. We want to focus on the employment for young people. The YES project that we've started, which is going to bring in 1 million young people into the work experience, is a good start. Those are not jobs. There are opportunities that young people will get to be able to be employable. Now, experience tells us that quite a number of those young people who are introduced to the world of work do end up getting jobs. And we've already seen it through a number of companies that have been participating on their own in this type of field. I flew Kulula this evening from Cape Town. Wonderful experience. And I sat next to a lady who tells me that her job, because I asked her, what is your job? And she says, Mr. President, my job is to bring in young people from the townships who have never been on an aeroplane before. Put them on an aeroplane, and she had 10. And the other time she said she had another 10 and 10 and so forth. She says, I had 10, took them to Cape Town, first flight, seasickness and blocked ears and all that, because it's their first time. They see what an airport is, how it works and operates. And she says, in the past, we have done that, and we've had 80% success rate. We were able to give jobs to 8 of the last week's 10 that we brought in, and they are excelling at their job. Only 2 fell off the bus, but 80% success rate in terms of absorption when people are introduced to the world of work is phenomenal. And we want more companies to do precisely that. I've been asked to participate in a commission called the Future of Work by the ILO together with the Prime Minister of Sweden. And in that, we are looking at what is the future of work in the light of the 4th Industrial Revolution, in the light of artificial intelligence, in the light of this digital revolution that we've been going through. Now, as we look at the future of work, we want to attract young people to come up with their innovative ideas and begin to craft how this future that we foresee in the world of work can actually be actualized, and the role that they believe that they can play. So we want to unleash an innovation revolution amongst the young people in our country so that they participate in creating jobs of the future themselves. And I believe that we can be very successful. And I know Gauteng and Pakstau, when he was mayor of Johannesburg, introduced something similar, and we want this to move ahead with greater speed. The issue of women continues to be a sore, a festering sore in our society, where women continue to suffer the brunt of both abuse, of both oppression, discrimination, and we want to focus on ensuring that we can empower the women of our country, because the women of our country are no less citizens than all of us who are men. They are just equal citizens, and we therefore want to embark on programs that are going to ensure that the women of our country do, yes, play their rightful place in the life of our country, properly empowered, so that we come up with programs that are going to protect women against this femicide that's been going on, the rapes, the assaults, the killings, and also give them full empowerment in the workplace. It is a shame that, and the UN has recognized this, it is a shame that we live in a world where women, whilst doing exactly the same job as men, are paid less than men. And that must come to an end. We want that to come to an end. In the end, I just want to briefly touch on the international work that we are going to be unleashing. In a few days' time, we will be traveling to the G7. The G7 is made up of those countries. They used to have Russia as part of the G7, which then made up the G8. Russia is no longer a participant. Now, they are having their summit in Canada. Of course, it's the United States, Great Britain, and Japan, and Canada, and Italy, and France, and all that. They have invited us to come after a 7-year lull. So they have said, come and talk about South Africa. That is where we are going to. Now, those who may think that this is an extension of white monopoly capital, we have decided that we are going where the money is. These are countries that are a reservoir of 60% of the wealth of the world. And they are the ones who drive investments. And having been invited by a very progressive Prime Minister of Canada, we believe that we should go and present our case. It will also give us an opportunity to meet a number of investors in Canada, particularly investors in Vancouver who invest in mining developments. So we are going there, but we're finding that the world is opening up to us. The world is saying, come, we want to engage. We have read your SONA address. We want to give assistance. China did precisely that, and they said, Mr. President, we've seen your SONA address. We want to bring 200 business people from China during BRICS. And so BRICS is going to be brimming with a lot of business people from a number of BRICS countries. And we are entering BRICS with a lot of confidence, a lot of determination, a lot of oomph, focusing our attention on what are our country's interests. We are putting South Africa's interests ahead of everything else. And of course, we are putting our continent's interests. And we are also going to have a number of African countries who are inviting to come to the BRICS summit, which will be taking place in July. And obviously, our foreign policy is rooted. It's rooted on human rights, on advancing our interests, but it is underpinned by our positioning in Africa. Our foreign policy is essentially rooted here in Africa. So even as we engage with a number of, say, parts of the world, we are an African country, and we will be pushing the African envelope a lot for investments, for ensuring that our Africa does indeed advance a lot further. At the center of this new dawn is indeed the process of renewal. And I think it is important that all of us as South Africans should be aware that this new dawn requires that. We should internalize it, we should begin to identify what it is that we can do to participate, to be part of this new dawn. One of the important things that we are doing as a government is to reach out to various sectors that had either decided to have a look and see type of approach to us. We are engaging, we are saying, come through. This was clearly sort of manifested during our land summit. At our land summit, we had a number of intellectuals, a number of professionals who have to do with the land issues. But we also had a number of NGOs, a number of organizations also participated. And at the end of that land summit, a number of people said, this is now the ANC we have always known, that engages, that reaches out, that brings people closer to where it is. And tonight I want to say that we will be reaching out to you because a number of you have a lot to contribute to the development of our country. We will be reaching out and asking you to make a contribution. It could be through particular entities that we will set up. It could be through some panels. It could be through whatever. We will reach out to you and ask you to come and contribute to the development of your country. And this is where the Tumamina concept then gains greater credence, because it will be a process through which we will want to feel that, yes, this is South Africa that you can also make a contribution in. So don't be surprised when we come after you, because indeed South Africa is going to come after you. Thank you very much.
President, please don't second guess the president on this is an advanced generation which studied the theory of abstract thinking and quantities, mathematics. So they understand the numbers. You guys did not do arithmetic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're getting into a very interesting session. We've all heard the president speaking. I'm now going to give to Prof to run the session.
Of professionals, academics, even managers, that they are solution-driven. So from where you sit, of course, we welcome what is called constructive proposals in the form of a criticism, okay? But also it's a test in time management, okay? Right. Over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Is it on? Okay, my name is Bongile Vilagazi. I'm an academic, young and
Put your hand
academic,
down.
based at the
Put your hand
Wits
down.
Business School, and I also consult on organizational renewal. Mr. President, thank you so much. That's what I wanted to express this evening. Because when you took over, and especially during the SONA presentation, I mean, everyone is citing it, you really inspired us. You gave us a new dawn, as we've been referring it to. But most importantly, you made us, for the first time, realize that it is also up to us. And we need to do, if this country has to move forward, we need to do something about it. And we went further than that. We see you every day. I was one of the people who were skeptical about this new dawn and what would happen. But every day you're proving me wrong. We see you, we understand that it's a thankless job, and it probably is difficult, but we see what you're doing and we appreciate it. I just came from Rwanda on a trip learning tour organized by young women, South African women, 2 South African women under the banner of African Women's Movement, to learn how Rwandans are doing in renewing their country. And we were in awe, actually, at Rwandans have nothing compared to what we have. They have very little, but they are making so much out of nothing. And the main things that they're doing is they're focusing on the right things, on values. And Mr. President, you focused a lot on the values that we think we need to be espousing as a country. But one thing that I would like to ask you, or at least reflect, or ask if your team has reflected on, is how are we going to, because one thing we realized as South Africans, we're very smart. We come up with the greatest policies. With the speeches we write, I mean, even now, you just said all the right things. We can't falter you on the speech. We say the right things, but our lived experiences, then there's a mismatch in that between the speech and what happens. So my question to you, Mr. President, is how are you going to make sure that the values that we've identified will take us forward as a country are lived at a granular individual level, not just at state institutions and organizational level? Thank you.
Yes, yeah, with the mic, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Anc Youth from the Black Business Council. Firstly, congratulations, Mr. President, for flying economy class. We have seen some ministers who will have never touched economy class, flying economy class nowadays, which is a good thing. So thank you very much for setting the tone.
The president can't hear. The sound is so bad. Even where I stand, I can't hear. I hear some mumble. So maybe come forward. Maybe come here. We want to hear what you're saying because it will help the president to jot down the issues.
Thank you very much, Program Director. As I said, my name is Anc Youth. I'm the CEO of the Black Business Council. It's a bit intimidating here because there's no woman. Mr. President, I was congratulating you on flying economy class because there are ministers that who could not have dreamt of them being in economy class. We see them now. So thank you very much for setting the tone from the top. Mr. President, there are just a few issues that we want to raise. I'll be very quick. We are very excited about the Tuma Mina. We support it, and we hope it won't only be PR, it will actually be action-orientated, because we've been having so many programs, so many policies, so many transformation policies that have never been implemented properly in the last 24 years. That we're sitting now with the majority of the citizens of the country who are sitting here, who are just majority in numbers, but they are minority in everything else. In culture, in economy, in everything else, we are minority. And we're still struggling with access to funding and access to markets. People come with ideas, they can't get funding. When you go to institutions that are supposed to be helping black business, the criteria is probably more difficult and stringent than the ones in normal banks and organizations. Professional firms and professionals are still marginalized. The accountants, the lawyers are still not given opportunities. So we're saying to Martina, we're here, we're skilled, we're experienced, we've been working for more than 24 years, we're here, so we need those opportunities, Mr. President. We're here, we're available. We're proposing that we should identify at least 10 sectors that we should focus on the next 5 to 10 years, that will say these sectors must be transformed. Construction being one of them. Mr. President, 24 years into democracy, we still don't have a black-owned, black-run bank. We're saying that looks like an anomaly. We can't have majority of the citizens not owning the economy. The last one is on the SOC boards. We're a bit worried that we see the recycling of the not so young people. We think those people should be playing other roles like being advisors or something else, but we have young people here who are qualified, who are able, who are available, who can serve on these boards. But also, lastly, Mr. President, we are saying, let's not allow the state-owned enterprises to be auto-utilized as slaughterhouses for black professionals. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to encourage black professionals to go and work in SOCs or government because they may just be in the papers very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Comrades, please, I don't want you to repeat the problem. Help us. Some of the problems are known. For example, when you raise the issue of recycling, tell us what the solution is. Like, for example, the last one, he said, sorry? Sorry? Oh, yeah, I think that one he did, yes. Over.
My name is Senamile Masango.
Yes.
I'm a nuclear scientist. As young scientists
Come
of
here,
my color.
Come here.
My name is Senamile Masango. I'm a nuclear scientist. As a young scientist of my color and gender, we are willing and we are ready, Mr. President, to contribute towards the solution to national and global challenges facing our society, like energy and your waters crisis. Whenever, Mr. President, there is a problem or crisis here in South Africa, we always go for China, Russia, France. Hence, as young people, we have responded to the call of making education fashionable. To Martina, Mr. President. Mr. President, please provide a platform for young black scientists so that we can able to influence policy decision and contribute towards the development of science. We are grateful for our caring government to provide us with resources. Even myself, I'm proudly founded by NRF. However, we are a little bit concerned about the quality of our education. We are more into quantity instead of quality. We even reduce, Mr. President, the passing rate of maths and science to be 30%. We must also change the perception around science. Stop seeing science as a problem, but see science as something that we can use to solve our own problems. Education is the key to the economy of our growth, Mr. President. Any country that invests in research has a future, and it will have a sustainable development. Education at the heart of the innovation that we see all around. New discoveries, such as technology, will never have been happen if it was not for PhD research. And it worries me, Mr. President, that most of our PhD graduates, they are not from South Africa. Most of our graduates, they end at the honors and master's level and go and look for a job because of what we call black taxi. What if our government can provide a stipend, like consider people who are studying PhD to be paid, and then we'll have more of our own South African PhD graduates. And then, Mr. President, we can solve our own problems. It's time for transformation. It's time for an independent South Africa. To Martina, we are ready and we have a fresh blood. Thank you.
Great. Great. Come.
Thank you, Prof. Good evening, Comrade President, and the leadership, and all protocol observed. Comrade President, thank you so much. My name is Gabrielle Lefluenya. I'm a CASA by profession, and I do many things, so I'll not go into that. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for affirming us as women, that as women, and in particular African women, we are as good as any other person, and most especially as our male counterparts. Okay? So, Comrade President, we do want to be sent. And we have been waiting for a very long time to be sent. And actually, as cadres of the movement, you would know that before this new wave, it's a good wave of Tumamina, there has always been a call from a song that we have always sang, even in the trenches, Comrade President, which says that I can't sing, I think just like you, so I will just say the words. So I will just say the words of the song, which says, Yababona bayoyika, Tumamina, Oliver Tambo. And that song, Comrade President, says to me that we have always been ready to be sent. And we don't want to be sent or to be instructed in the interest of serving politicians, but we want to be sent to serve the people of this country. Okay? Comrade President, I'll be very brief. What I would like you to look into, Comrade President, it is the legislative environment that we operate under in this country. The legislative environment that we operate under, Mr. President, restricts our ability to be sendable, right? I will speak particularly to the Preferential Procurement Regulation, right? The 90-10 principle. I think that principle is a joke, Mr. President. 90 referring to everything else, to price, but 10% to BE credentials. In the country that we live in, Mr. President, with the history that we have, I think this legislation has got to be relooked at. Comrade President, we spend in this country billions of rands in goods and services. However, a good percentage of these billions of rands goes into white-owned companies and companies that are not transformed, because BE only counts for 10%. Okay? I would like you indeed, Mr. President, in this new dawn, to relook into this act so that we can make economic transformation a reality in our lifetime, and so that, Mr. President, the people of this country can taste the dividend of freedom. Thank you.
I've got, sorry, there were a number of hands that were raised. I didn't pinpoint them because specifically there were a number of people who were supposed to speak.
Over here.
I've got a list here. Let me do this for purpose of justice, because there were a number of people who raised their hands. We took 3 now. I'm remaining with 2. After 2, the president will respond. No? All of them? Okay. 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 Let me, if that be the case, then let me go to the names so that I can, okay? Let me take 10 now, Okay? No, with you. Stand here. Stand here. Stand here. Okay? Okay. There are so many hands. Okay.
Sanmodan. Sikbingelele, Mr. President. Ngibingelele konke la ekhaya kuKhongolose. Mr. President, mine is very simple. It's 3 simple points. It's interesting to see the new dawn has birthed us, how would you say, members who've come from the other parties. And we welcome all of them. Mr. President, mine is very simple. We talk about foreign direct investment. We have a policy for foreign direct investment, but I don't see us having an emphasis on local investment policy. And what that means very simply is we have pension funds that distribute hundreds of billions of rand into the mainstream economy that use, to this day, predominantly white asset managers to fund large businesses listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Now, it is a matter of fact that the largest contributor of pensions into the pension fund industry are the very same black majority who then don't receive those same funds. What we have been doing is talking about how do you transform the economy by funding small businesses, which happen in the main to be black, who are excluded from the mainstream economy. We then use government institutions to fund those businesses, but these government institutions are funded by taxes, not by the pension fund industry. Now, I sit on the board of South African Venture Capital and Private Equity Association with the President. I can tell you as a matter of fact that less than 5% of the money that is run by the large asset managers in this country is run by black asset managers. So it is not a function of mystery why you're not developing black entrepreneurs. Because the funds that are coming from the white asset managers go to predominantly white-owned, less risky businesses. And what I'm keen to hear, Mr. President, is what is your view on how do we develop policy to make it such that we can have funds coming from pension funds into the venture capital industry to finance what are predominantly black businesses? Because that answers all these entrepreneurs who say there's no funding. That was my first comment. My last one. Mr. President, very simply, the very last one. In a country of a 28% unemployment youth environment, the numbers from Dadile Hotla tell us that for young black women, that number is north of 50%. I'm keen to hear from you, Mr. President, apart from the YES project, what else can we as black professionals be doing to include the excluded majority? Thank you.
Just stand on the line there. I can see lines there, but you're not going to talk. Please, I'm not going to give you a minute because I can see the numbers. Ne? Just be brief and to the point, okay?
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Musoma. Comrade President, thank you very much for affording us an opportunity to engage you. Comrade Premier, and all protocol observed. Comrades, I wish we had more time. I am Chris Mamatuncha from the Black Lawyers Association in Gauteng. I have got the following input that I wish to share with the President. In your address to the January 8 statement in East London of the African National Congress, this is what you said on a program for accelerated radical socio-economic transformation. You said, following the resolution of the Nasrec Conference of the African National Congress on improving access to justice and accelerating the transformation of the judicial system, remains a key imperative to continue enhancing legal services across all levels of government. That's number one. At the State of the Nation address, Comrade President, when you were dealing with issues relating to black professionals, in particular lawyers. You said your government is going to increase its capacity to support black lawyers and women in particular. I want to point you to Section 217 of the Constitution of the Republic. Section 217 of the Republic, Comrade President, says the following. It says that when government entities engage in any procurement, they must comply with 5 key principles. One of that is that when procuring for contracts or goods or services, government or state institutions must do so in accordance with a system which is fair, equitable, transparent, and competitive, and cost-effective. Comrade President, this new dawn that you are speaking about must cascade down to lawyers. I stand here, I speak on behalf of the disadvantaged legal practitioners in Gauteng. I stand here, I want to speak on behalf of the lawyers of South Africa, black lawyers in particular. I am saying, Comrade President, this new dawn must give us confidence. I'm saying this new dawn must not mean that white is good than us. It is not correct that all the time that you see this recycling of white senior counsels to the expense of our own people. So we're saying, Comrade President, I will speak about lawyers, because if we had more time, I was going to engage you on many, many other issues. So, Comrade President, as I close, because I see everyone wants to speak, I want to say, Comrade President, that we all have the ability to succeed in this country. We all have the ability to succeed, but what we need is opportunities. If we are not afforded opportunities, we are not going to succeed. We are not going to rise to realize the new dawn. So I'm saying in conclusion, Comrade President, please lend black lawyers a hand. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Inez Esop, and I'm from Commonwealth Youth League. My name is Inez Esop, and I'm from Commonwealth Youth League. We are an organization that is for women empowerment. In the past, we have foreign investors who are willing to invest their money into desalination plants and other things that are going to help South Africa with regards to environmental affairs and other affairs which are economical. However, we have failed to get into contact with you. We have investors, we have companies who are interested, but we have not been able to make any contact with you. And I think that's a very big problem regarding this country, or this company, is that we have all these great solutions. As South Africans, we are now growing with this new dawn, but there's no way of expressing ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Batabile Mureki. I'm from Olivenhout Bosch. We run youth mentorship. It's called Township Economic Transformation. Mr. President, we have a solution. All the youth, even the lady who was here previously, she's complaining about supply chain that only gives 10% on the BE scoring. Now, what we have come about with is an ecosystem for small businesses. I'm a franchisee by profession. I run 4 franchise stores, which now I've taken the model into townships. There are beautiful products and services from townships, but they are not formal. Mr. President, what we have done now is that all our finishers, all other services will be procured from township. We have so many youth initiatives that they even recycle tires to make finisher. But you won't find those finishers in the national brands in restaurants like your Nando's, your KFC. All the chairs, they are bought from big companies. So now what we have done is that even our uniform that will be used for those stores will be procured from the townships. There's a lot of procurement that will be done from the township. We've written to different offices
even small department, unfortunately, the officials are failing the minister by not even showing her our ecosystem value chain. So, Mr. President, we even have written to our office. Robert has our document where we a franchising plus. I know you know Mr. Eric Parker. He did a value chain proposition for all the salons, all the motor space businesses, all the laundry that are running to township so that we can be formal. Township businesses are not growing because they're not formal. They're not banking their money. They're not having financial management. In our ecosystem, Mr. President, we will also be absorbing professionals like your bookkeepers. You've got a lot of students who are graduating from TVETs. They're not getting employed. So we need those services in our small businesses so that we can create employment. Mr. President, please assist us to get access to those training materials, to get access to the whole value chain through Eric Parker. You know him, he has done the first franchising model in South Africa. So we need to do that in townships. Thank you.
No, you know what? We must not be disruptive. Can you please sit down, this side? And you, please. I'm just asking you to sit down. We cannot all of us be in a position to speak. This is not an imbizo. And what it means is it's a conversation that continues beyond the walls of this place. And I think there are about 9 people who have spoken. And they might have captured what you want to say. We're over 600 here. All of us, if we were to speak, will finish the following day. And so, please, ladies and gentlemen, sit down, I'll give you a chance. But with a full understanding that we are well-educated people. And education have taught us to have manners. So, we are not hooligans. Now, we need to capture the spirit of the occasion. That the president is here, has given us his time, he has put his ideas on the table, and is here to listen. So when other people speak here, you are given a 1 minute, you don't give them a chance, the president won't hear. Because the president leads the country. So he must understand what people think somewhere in Sandton and everywhere else. But we're not going to speak, all of us, Bantu Bengosi. So I'm going still to give you a chance to speak. When you come here, you introduce yourself. What do? You don't pose a question, you make your comment and you pose your question. The spirit is Tumamina, and all of us, we embrace that. There are accountants who have spoken, lawyers have spoken, scientists have spoken. This is black excellence that we just dream about, we theorize about. Today we see it. We've got black scientists which we never had. Young people. Now they are speaking to the president of the country. Sisi, I'm going to give you to come and speak, and others, I will make a determination after to give the next 5 or 10 again. But I'm going to take you in rows. I'm going to give this row 5, I'll point at you. I'll point this and this. Be brief. 1 minute, okay? And please listen to others. Come, sis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Ncebakazi Nompula. I'm a qualified chemical engineer who passed her degree cum laude, who have experienced the patriarchy and the discrimination of being a black female who cannot be given an opportunity in the private sector. So, Mr. President, what I want you to do is root out corruption in the private sector. And I will give you an example in terms of how. You are not supposed to renew the work permits of the experts in this country. You cannot have one organization having a managing director, finance director, supply chain director, quality manager, brewery manager, IT manager coming from outside, and you tell me that South Africans are not capable.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You see, well said, straight to the point. We have on. No manga. Leave protocol to me. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to start here to give the first 5. I want to prioritize women. Mroy hlala phansi manje ngumuntu weANC qobo. Uzawubuza ntoni kupresident? Hlala phansi ndifuna abantu esingabaziyo. Sisi oko umepa ngaphambili ngawubeke. Ufuna ungathetha into ende. Please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. President and the colleagues, we are late. My name is Eugene Yakula Ameyao. I'm a chairperson of Black Women Organization South Africa. Mr. President, few things. We've complained about women not there. You've chaired the HRDC, which I'm a champion of this year, or from last year before you left it. Why not in the HRDC have a pipeline strategy? Because we cannot be having those old. So the solution is have a pipeline, have the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, the 50-year-olds to be able to be in the pipeline for boards and strategic position in the country. That is possible. And the other thing, Mr. President, in the TVET sector, that's a key component of skills. And in my little experience, I've also lectured in the TVET in the past. In my experience, this country with the resources, you took us to learn from global countries. What I learned overseas, a company like Mercedes-Benz in East London would have a workshop, top-of-the-range workshop, funded by them. Because our students then, they will leave the industry, the TVET, not knowing a fuel-injected car. So they can't meet the needs of the private sector. So let the business fund the TVET, even build state-of-the-nation, state-of-the-art workshops like Mercedes-Benz, BMWs. Why not have an input in that? And the last thing, my president and my leaders, we have leaders. The country has been in the state where it is. There's a program I've seen in my travel in the 22 countries in Africa, but in one country, where they teach about your vision up to where the last point is, what will I be remembered for? Because we have leaders, or whether young or old, who think of their term of office. Hence, they should eat as much as they can eat now. They don't think of the legacy. Can we teach young people at a very young age, change our education system to include that? You teach them up to thinking about the legacy. That is not about the now, but 10 years later. And that, I have a concept for that. And we mentor women. They are ready to serve in boards. I mentor them. They have MBAs. I've just completed my what have you. So we need opportunities for them. Thank you.
There is a gentleman there in the middle. I'm done here. There. No, nina lapha phansi hlalani niqhibile ngani. There is, yeah, wena Iza. Wena wamaglazana. Iza Mhlekazi. Okay. You have deferred. Iza, come forward, Chief. All right. Not you. I pointed, not you, Chief. Sorry. I pointed at, yeah. And then I'll be going at the back. You'll be the last I come to this group. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks a lot. The name is Khosito Sidupane. I'm from Sidupane's legal consultancy, but I have a huge experience when it comes to Chapter 9s, Chapter 9 institutions. So I only want to talk about service delivery. Service delivery in this sense that focusing mainly on Chapter 9s as well as the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. I've realized one thing, that our Chapter 9s are extremely fragmented, Mr. President. And fragmentation brings out confusion. We need to consolidate them at one point. The DPME is responsible for monitoring, evaluation, as well as planning when it comes to service delivery aspect. Chapter 9s look specifically into that as well. We look at the public protector is concerned about service delivery, administrative law. We look at the Human Rights Commission, socio-economic, as well as cultural rights. We look at CGE and so forth. So I suppose at some point we really need to look into the administration of these pieces of legislation. They are all fragmented. You have CRL Rights Commission under COCTA. You have Human Rights Commission under Justice. You have CGE similarly under Justice. But for us to bring them all together and to plan accordingly in line with DPME to achieve the services to our people, which is core, we really need to consolidate them properly, not to say that merge them, as it has been the position. Whether you merge or not, it's something else. But the key thing is about planning and ensuring that we are able to work together between Chapter 9s, which are responsible for service delivery, together with the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Thank you very much.
You were the last this side. Now I'm in the middle. Abantu bebhola abafuna uthetha. No, baba andipointanga wena mntu omkhulu. Wena uzawuvala. No, ndifuna lo sisi lo. Khawuze sisi. Khawuze ngaphambili. Ndizawunika amadoda kuthi. I'll give you.
I'm nervous. My name is Yanda. I am a qualified food scientist, but I operate in a different field. I left the food industry because it was not transformed and I needed to go and make a living somewhere else. But what I'm very passionate about, Mr. President, is a customer service environment. And it bothers me that when you go into a private space, you find our people that are serving us in the private space, they serve us very well, because there are consequences to how they serve us. I am in that environment. We develop programs that train them, that measure them, and there are consequences if we don't receive that service. And because they are aware of those consequences, that's why they serve us well. And my thing has always been, how do we then transform that into state services? You know, how do we make sure that we bring those sort of trainings, we bring those sort of consequences, you know, we bring those programs that our people, when we go into spaces like your SAPS, your Home Affairs, we get exactly the same service that we get in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a white man here who represents black excellence. He's been wanting to speak for a very long time. Come forward, my brother. Okay.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and Minister Balula, for being your quota player. President, in an industry like mining, we're talking about radical economic transformation. We're talking about creating jobs. Sorry, my name is Leslie Stolterfit. We're a mining supply manufacturer. All of our equipment is 100% South African designed. Okay, our sister company was a company called Basadi by Africa, was launched about 8 months ago, but it's 100% woman-owned and majority black-owned women that own their own mining supply IP. The business model is able to be like rolled out to all the different mining towns, historic mining towns, as business opportunities for black entrepreneurs. If we get access to dumps that are there for rehabilitation, we can create jobs. We can take community members, uplift them, train them. Sanduka Black Umbrellas has there already done a sterling job in terms of identifying a lot of those entrepreneurs. So I'm just saying is that there's a lot of white companies fabrication, mining, that are willing and want to be part of this transformation. And we hold out our hands and wait for the opportunities in conjunction with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you. You know why I pointed you is because the other day you had a lot to say. So here is the president.
I'm not going to say a lot. Thanks, Comrade Mbax. I'm not going to say a lot because Comrade Hanki Matabane has covered most of the issues. My name is Kingsley. Klobatla is my surname. I'm chairman of the Black Pharmaceutical Industry Association, an executive chairman of Bliss Holdings, and as well sit on the board of Nulatex SA. Mr. President, within the pharmaceutical industry that I represent as chairman of the Black Pharma industry, we're talking here about an industry, a sick industry, maybe to put it succinctly, wherein the industry contributes to the GDP less than 1%. However, is the second largest contributor to the trade deficit. Now, what does that say? In the last 20 years, Mr. President, the sector has closed in excess of 37 plants within the whole pharmaceutical ecosystem, from manufacturing, packaging, distributors. Now, this is one of the most untransformed sectors of our economy. Now, I took up a challenge when you said, we want land. Yes, we want land, Mr. President, to do a number of things, to establish farmer hubs, wherein we are the largest, or we have the largest HIV and AIDS program in the world. Yet, Mr. President, it's very sad to note that you'll never hear anyone talk about where do these ARVs come from? Who supplies these ARVs? Sad to say, more than 85% of the API, which is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, and other intermediaries are imported. Of the 267 pharmaceutical companies registered in South Africa, 22 years into a hard-earned constitutional democracy, there's only less than 10 black-owned pharmaceutical companies. We are closed outside, Mr. President. Now, this new dawn finds us at a period where no one listens. We've ended up, or doors are closed on us. We ended up recently going up as far as the Portfolio Committee on Health in Parliament to present our case, to say it cannot be that we are told when we have the highest or the greatest economies of scale in terms of HIV and AIDS, yet you'll not hear anyone talk about local manufacturing. Nothing. So we thank you and we pray that as I go sit, that black-owned company dossiers can be prioritized so that we have access. We have access to the likes of Clicks, Discam, who, by the way, do not buy anything from black-owned companies. I thank you.
The lady there with the white shirt, you'll be the last in this row. We come there. You young men, you. Yes, we want to listen to the youth. Yes.
Thank you very much. It helps to wear white today in this cold weather. Mr. President, you've touched on a very, very important subject. Sorry, I'm Hermie George, and I'm a lawyer by profession. I specialize in international customs and international trade law. Mr. President, I was in fact sent by the government to work for 3 years at the World Customs Organization. I just returned in January. So I can say that I was sent. But sadly, now that I'm back, I'm not used. So I think the government do spend a lot of money of sending people overseas to gain special skill, to give their skill. But when we come back, there's no platform to plow it back into the country. Also, what I've seen with my experience internationally and also a lot of conferences that I have attended, that people come and they're not the correct people that come to these meetings internationally. And South Africa is not well represented. And we sit there on the podium representing international organization, and we bow our heads in shame for some of the candidates that has been sent. And because somebody was sent because they knew somebody, and they were not sent because they have the skill to come and represent the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're jumping to that row. I appointed him first, the young man, not you, Baba. The boy, yes. No, I appointed him first. The point
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Mateen Esop. I am 16 years old. Like me, there are many South Africans who have developed products that could change South Africa and the world for the better. We would like to commercialize these products, therefore boosting the economy and creating a tremendous amount of jobs. However, we lack the capacity of funding for people in our age groups. The youngest available funding is from 18 years old, which is of course a problem for people like me. So my question is, and my plea and my beg to you is that you create more entities that will be able to fund people as young as me for all of our innovations, so that we may commercialize them and take them to the next level. And also, these entities must have a greater funding capacity. Thank you.
Yes, when assist. Andiyazi ke abathi PEP. uPeps. Andingeni leyo nto leyo. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long speech. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. President. My name is Lebogang Morare. I am a minority. I am a young, black, beautiful, female chartered accountant of South Africa. Mr. President, state-owned enterprises have an executive committee which run the operations of the company. Those companies have oversight committees which consist of directors that provide an oversight role, such as legal and auditors. You mentioned that you want to have an oversight committee or functions on companies which already have oversight. Is there a need for this committee? Is this not a duplication of efforts? Solution: don't create more structures, but give new minds new opportunities to preside over these underperforming entities. All your auditors, accountants, strategists can be found at ABASA, the Association of the Advancement of Black Accountants of Southern Africa. You'd be killing 3 birds with 1 stone: young, good gender balance, qualified professionals. To Martina, we are here.
The gentleman there, you raised your hand? You, yes.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Mr. President. My name is Ufizile Dlamini. I'm a digital entrepreneur and an agent for social and economic change by being a founder and managing director of Green Scooter. This is Africa's first all-electric vehicle ride-sharing platform. You may have seen it in the news. Whew, okay. Supplying both electric vehicles, which we build in Sweden. As you mentioned, you have been engaging with the guys in Sweden. I build my electric vehicles in Sweden as well. So my question is, why is it that all these government parastatals that have been created to fund young entrepreneurs, black or white, are not funding anything new, but what has always been the norm in business? We would like to participate in this economy, make it a land worth living in. But we are constantly faced with gatekeepers who don't want us to implement robust ideas that are a part of this 4th industrial revolution many speak of, because according to them, they won't work. I've tweeted you asking for investment to build my local factory that will create up to 10,000 sustainable jobs throughout Africa, and I have proven this. So please, Mr. President, nami ngicela ungithume. Let me help drive the new age. Sorry. Let me drive the new age of clean energy, transportation as a service, and business model innovation. Thank you.
Not you, sir. Not this row we're dealing with. You, ma'am. You, yeah. I'm pointing at you because you've been jumping up and down. Yes.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, we meet again. We met at the Youth Employment Services launch.
Raise your voice.
Okay. I've got to start again. Thank you. My name is Akashni Rowett. I am part of the Ubuntu Initiative Jobs Summit. We met at the Youth Employment Services when we launched on the 27th of March. And you supported our launch, which took place on the 27th of November 2017. So the approach that we took was to look at each industry, work with the 20-seaters, and look at the scarce and critical skills that is currently out there, look at the gaps, and try and work with the private sector to say, how do we skill and place? So we support the youth employment services. However, we also want to look at the next steps to say, once they've had the first year of work-integrated learning, what next? So the Jobs Summit is basically a platform that was formed to bring together all initiatives. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I have sent you a letter requesting a meeting, and same with Mr. Makura as well, for us to sit face to face, because what we've done is we've got projects that are ready to go. And in order to do that, we need funding, and then that will automatically create jobs. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay.
No, thank you very much. Guys, can you sit down, please? I've tried to give more than 20 people, doubling what Uprof has actually done. But kunomuntu omdala la ungibuka kabi manje ute wasuka la wazohlala la phambili, so angifuni ukuthi amadlozi angibheke kabi ukuthi ngangifuna ukukhuluma no Ramaphosa lo mntana wangivimba lo ngisho ngayohlala nase stage so umuntu omkhulu ngawuphefumule.
Thank you very much. I happen to be Otto Mbangula, and Mbalula, you can see the link. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for this opportunity. It's a very rare opportunity. I want to speak to you that aspect of you of farming. I'm a farmer. I come from the National African NAFU, National African Farmers Union. We represent more than 50,000 farmers. Most of them are emerging. I'm also the director of the first black red meat industry that is being established in this country. And therefore, President, one, we want, in the spirit of Tumamina, to say the issue raised about land that is lying fallow, that's our concern. And we are here. We want to bring into production more than 100,000 hectares of land in the deep rural areas. Remember the day you were flying over one of the parts and you were concerned about that. That's what we want to do. The other thing linked to that, President, we are worried about the retrenchment of miners who come from the rural areas. And when they get to the rural areas, there's nothing they do. And we are saying we are there to make sure that that land that they left becomes productive. The last thing, President, we are concerned as members of NAFU, a sector of NAFCOC, that in BRICS, there are no farmers. People who speak on our behalf, they are not farmers. I don't even think that they've got a garden behind their houses. And therefore, we want to be sure, President, that when the BRICS meeting comes here, we are properly represented. In the spirit of what Prof. Musoma says, we are here, but Prof, you know where we come from. And we want to say we have taken a very deliberate and serious option for black people, and we have no shame about that. We want to transform this country. This is our country.
Thank you, guys. Please. I think the spirit of Tumamina, President, coming from this meeting is characterized by impatience. Mazijiki zinto. Sorry, guys, please, can you lower your hands? I think we're now going to give the President, not to respond because this is a conversation, for the things that you have actually raised. I'm going to give the President to reflect because it was never going to end tonight. Sorry? No, Chief. Health sector was represented here, partly by pharmaceuticals. Okay. Mandimnike health sector. Okay. All right.
Dr. Thandeka Ngana, Specialist Pediatrics. In the Lily White subspecialty of Pediatric Hematology and Oncology, with special interest in bone marrow and stem cell transplant. I was very impressed with Usisi Lapaya, and I share her sentiment, Guti, there is no funding for us. Most of us, as she would agree, would like to go into PhD programs, but there is no funding. And I think it is very important that we need to understand, Uguti, for any economy to be sustained, education is very important, and science and mathematics is very important. Secondly, I've seen lawyers have been represented, engineers have been represented, nuclear physicists have been represented, but the healthcare system the healthcare sector, pharmaceuticals have been represented. I feel like currently, for example, this is the Gauteng meeting, we are aware of the problem that we have with employing our interns and community service doctors due to the lack of funds. I was just thinking, and I've had conversation with some people in the health sector, and how about we involve the private sector in the training of our interns for sustainability so that more qualified doctors can be pushed into the system. Secondly, Ngiyabonga Baba from the Beck Pharmaceutical thingy. As someone in pediatric oncology, I think I'm not happy with the pricing of oncological drugs. For example, right now I have a patient in Barra who needs a drug that will cost him 153,000 rands for 250 milligrams of a drug. And these drugs are not funded by our public health sector, yet they're easily available in the private health sector because people in the private health sector can afford it. And I feel that distributive justice should be applied, that the same level of healthcare in the public sector should be equated to the level of healthcare in the private sector. So I feel the same people that are training students. For example, I work as a medical student lecturer for the University of Witwatersrand. So if I can, and some of my colleagues that work in the private sector can train medical students in their undergraduate training, they can equally train qualified doctors in their internship program so that these same clinicians can be taken out into the primary healthcare setting as community service doctors, because the importance of healthcare is good, excellent primary healthcare, which then diminishes the cost of healthcare and whatnot. Because there's no point in you giving me the land if I'm not clinically well to man the land or work the land. And I'd like funding to do my PhD in health economics. I'm just putting it out there.
No, thank you very much. Domestic workers. We didn't call domestic workers. I see, sihlala phansi man. No. No, sorry. Education. Come.
Good evening. My name is Sulema Mlopa. I work for the Gauteng Provincial Government. I am a professional and I'm an e-learning specialist. E-learning is the one that is used in China today to transform lack of education. They have opened more than 686 universities within 10 years. If we can be able to do that, we will transform our economy beyond boundaries. So what I wanted to say is to deal with the issue of the structure of education in South Africa. You go and look at the supporting functions around SAQA. You find almost one individual being a CEO of 5 or more, being too much influential, and also being the a head of a university, one of the universities, that's conflict of interest of note. So I won't mention names. So we need to make sure that we transform the structure. Why our universities are falling down in terms of international rankings is because of SAQA's structure is rigid. We are not able to, for an example, if you are from TVET, you can't be articulated into academia, right? A child from TVET can complete, or from a CETA, can complete a qualification, but that child will never see the day of a university, even if they have the same NQF as matric. So our education system, it's rigid and fragmented and is not allowing for a proper flow in that fashion. The last point is, please start at home. There are pockets of excellence within government, like the GCRA, as I will point out in front of my premier. We're doing very well. If we are going to invest in Yes Campaign is a direct competition of GCRA, Gauteng City Region Academy. And we would like to invest more, we would like more investment to be put and to be channeled in that particular environment. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, no, wait. I think we've made the point that we are all not obviously going to be covered. And it is quite clear to me, honestly speaking, that the thirst to engage government leadership, it is out there. And the president himself was here not only to listen, but at the same time to be enriched by your ideas in the different fields where you practice your profession. And I don't think we must take this for granted, because this is the highest leadership in the country. And most of you here, you are under 30s, 25, it's only me who's 50. And this is the youth of our country, well educated, produced by this democracy. If it was not because of this democracy, we will not be doctors. And today, you are building, you are contributing. You have been heard and there's been change. So it's not the end. Your ideas are going to shape and inform our way forward. So I'm going to give the president, because this is the platform. But this platform does not end here. It also goes to the digital space where we need to exchange, but also differently, so that we can satisfy ourselves with engagement. So next time we'll not call a dinner. Come when we call you, because we'll involve ministers who are engaged in this field. We sit here, we have panel discussions. Panel discussions, we engage. You have heard the president, what he said, and the spirit of Tumamina, which is embraced by everybody. And I'm going to give the president now the opportunity to reflect on your inputs, which in itself is not an end, on what you said as he was listening here and taking notes. Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much, Comrade Mbalula. And let me take this opportunity to express my gratitude for this type of engagement. I have found it to be very meaningful, and also a type of engagement that has come up with a number of suggestions, and many of which I will want to take up, and I'll elucidate how some of those can be taken up. And maybe let me start off with a few I think in 2016, the approach was much more a complaint section. That is what we seemed to be doing. Today, I think we are edging closer to ask not what your country will do for you, but what you will do for your country. We are not yet quite there. And the next time we engage, I would like to see us having moved to saying, this is what we want to do for our country. But let me thank you that nearly everyone, in fact, everyone was saying, send us to Martina, we are prepared to serve. And for that, I applaud you and I thank you because I think we are on the right course. And I want to thank the really, really forward-looking proposals and suggestions that have been made. It started off, and I'm not going to mention everybody by name because sometimes when people come here, they mumble. They mumble their name, they say, I'm Cyril Ramaphosa, and you don't hear what they are saying. So Bongiwe was the first, and she related the experience in Rwanda. And I think it's good that we should have comparators. We should be able to compare ourselves with what other countries are doing. Rwanda is a small country. It went through a most horrible, horrible experience where 800,000 people were killed just in a space of 2 months. But they've been able to pick themselves up. They have very little, but they are making do with the little that they have. And a nation has risen from the ashes and the bones of the people who were killed in 1993. As we were galloping to our own democracy here, we were not quite alive to the dangerous situation that was unfolding in Rwanda. But Rwanda today is one of the fastest growing economies on our continent. And people who visit Rwanda are always in awe, as I have been on 2 occasions when I've been there. You hardly see a single paper or plastic anywhere you go. How I wish our own South Africa can be like that. How I wish our cities can be like that. It is for that reason that we are going to be launching a big campaign to clean South Africa. Because that is what we need to do, to clean our country and to engage everyone in our country. And I'm hoping that many of you, if not all, will find time to participate in that cleanup campaign that we want to launch throughout the cities of our country and even the rural areas. That in itself will be a process of demonstrating that we are active citizens. We are prepared to be engaged and to engage, and that is where the Tumamina concept really gains its legs and becomes a massive campaign that we can embark on. Bongiwe spoke about there's been a mismatch between policy and implementation. I think Bongiwe is absolutely right. There has been a mismatch. Sometimes we would take policy decisions and they would lie fallow for a very long time without being implemented. I was saying to the NEC the other day that we took decisions in December. Already, we are moving to implement those decisions. We are already putting the building blocks in place. For instance, on the land question, we have drawn the line and said we are going to implement this resolution, come sun or hay or rain or whatever, it is going to be implemented. And it will be implemented not only in our lifetime, it will be implemented in this term of this NEC's life. And that is going to happen. So we are now taking up policies, even policies that were decided on in the past. We are going to implement them. The resolve to implement our policies is quite serious. It's quite huge, and we want to ensure that we move. And Bongiwe also said we want to see living of the values. And she is so right. In this new dawn, we actually want to see all of us living the values that are enshrined, yes, in our movement's constitution, yes, in our constitution, the values that our forebears subscribe to. Those values which are also articulated as I was talking about what the new dawn is all about. We would like to see those being lived not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector, so that some of the things that are going wrong in the private sector must be corrected. For instance, the discrimination that is perpetrated against women in the private sector must come to an end. And that is how we live the values. This patriarchal approach and attitude that we have in South Africa must also come to an end. And that is living the values and inculcate in our consciousness the values that we would like to live by. And that will also begin to deal with all other manner of things. The criminality that we have in society, that people want to violate other people's rights, they want to steal from other people. These are the values that we now need to bring alive so that we become a nation of people who subscribe to good behavior, to good values, and we must know that right from the top leadership of the country, right to the leadership of a school, we will subscribe to the best values that there is, and we will make sure that the rule of law, good behavior, honesty, and truthfulness are going to be the order of the day. And that is why I found Bongiwe's proposal very, very much a cogent one. And I want to thank you, Bongiwe, for saying we must live the values, because we must. Now, the CEO of the BBC correctly chastises us, very, very much so. We hung our heads in shame. This is a very bad representation of what the leadership, even here at this stage, is. I feel like walking away from these men. Professor Msoma, you are the one who constructed this. And Max is the godfather of this. And the Premier and the Provincial Secretary. Wow, shame on you guys. And he is right in saying Tumamina must be action-oriented. And that is why in my initial input I spoke about what we need to do to make Tumamina come alive. There are a number of things that we must do. Yes, indeed, we must push ahead, which is in the main domain of what they do at BBC, with radical economic transformation. That is when Tumamina really comes alive. And I liked what he said when he said identify sectors. Identify sectors where we are going to see change. He said construction, and there are quite a number of sectors. And I think tonight we've been able to identify a number of key sectors where we need to bring about change. That is why this engagement is so good. Yeah, I really thank you for that. Because the pharmaceutical sector is one sector. I'm just singling out one. It's one sector that needs to be attended to. And the legal sector as well, by the way. Because many of our people who train as lawyers still remain just picking up the crumbs that fall from the table. And that must come to an end as well. And I agree entirely. So he is suggesting that make sure that we identify sectors we address those sectors, and in a few years' time, we see that we have actually moved further ahead. I enjoyed my sister, the nuclear scientist. Wow, nuclear scientist, that's great. And she is advocating that we should have more PhD graduates and we should fund them. And may I say that at the Human Resource Development Council, which I used to chair, the Deputy President is now chairing it. This is precisely what we've been talking about. How we can develop and fund our own PhDs and produce a plethora of PhDs. There's nothing as wonderful as knowing that, within your crowd of people, you've got PhDs, or Dokotela Bempela, who are well educated. It is something that we are paying attention to. But let me say, where we may be slacking and where we may not be providing enough funding, I would like to encourage you as our compatriots to come forward and say, here are would-be candidates. Let us mobilize funding for them. Here are would-be candidates. Let us push. And I remember the experience that we had, and I'm digressing for a bit. When I was asked to chair Sasria, which is the reinsurance company that the government owns, it's in the insurance space. And I just asked the question, how many black South African actuaries do we have? That was like 15 years ago. We only had one. Only one. And I said, but how can it be? Where are they trained? They said, no, WITS trains them, UCT trains them, and there are about 400 or so in the country. And they are nearly all white. And I said, but this is an anomaly. We cannot allow this. And then we started the South African Actuarial Development Program. And we hired somebody who we said should go through a number of schools in our country, go and headhunt young people who are really good at maths and science and expose the actuarial profession to them. And she did that. She went to about 300 schools, right from the north, right to the south. And we started recruiting these young people to come and study actuarial science. And we put them through universities. We appointed people who would, if you like, assist them. The tutors were there and so forth. And they were just flying. And today, 15 years later, we've got almost 20 fully qualified with the degree that comes from Edinburgh, or whatever there is, but with a full professional degree, properly qualified actuaries, black actuaries in our country. Now, we've got more than 150 of them who have already passed the degree, who now have to go and get their professional qualification. I mention this because there is space, there is room for us to be focused whenever we see that there's a gap in certain professions. And this we can do as both government and the private sector, and mobilize the resources, funding, knowledge, and focus and say we want to train and produce a particular skill set. And similarly with PhDs, I believe that as a country, we can focus and say, we want to produce 250 PhDs in a year or something like that. There's nothing that can stop us. And then we go out, get money, fund them. And once we can focus, we will be able to produce PhDs. Rather than leave it to a laissez-faire type of process where we say, well, if they want to, they will, and if they don't want to, they won't. China produces almost 20,000 PhDs a year, and they are pushing them. They send them all over the world to go and get further training. And I think if we are serious, and serious we are, about skills, about getting people who are well trained in various disciplines, that is the approach we should have. We should have, a properly handled process, directed process, focused, and it will be able to produce results for us. As I have seen it produce results with accountants, with actuaries, and with engineers. And we can go to other skills as well. So, my nuclear scientist, thank you for raising this matter. We will attend to it. Lehlonya of the CFA lady, or something like that, we want to be sent. And you were talking about legislation, the Preferential Procurement Act. This has been raised many times, and I can say that it's already being looked at. We're looking at it because through this, I believe, we will be able to unlock a lot of value and energy amongst our people to be able to get into business, run meaningful businesses, rather than the goods and services that are being bought largely by government, going to untransformed companies. And this is where we've got to issue a clear notice that we want our black people to get into this space which has always been dominated by white companies, and we actually want those companies to transform as well. So we will make, my sister, economic transformation a reality, and the Procurement Act is going to be addressed. Now, you also said we must have a local investment policy, and I agree with that. And we should also ensure that we have funds that can be allocated for venture capital. Now, as you well know, we have allocated a couple of billions of rands to support the program of black industrialists. And for the first time in the 23 years we've been in a democracy, we're beginning to see a number of black manufacturers, black industrialists coming to the fore. What I have found also pleasing is that amongst you here, people are talking more about manufacturing rather than just the provision of the services that many people have been relegated to. And we want to push this manufacturing aspect very strongly, because we've taken the view that our economy will grow if we really reindustrialize. If we push the reindustrialization program at national level, at provincial level as well, that's what people are focusing on, we will be able to do so. So that requires money, and we should be able to mobilize funding, and funding can either be public funding and private funding as well. And we can also leverage what public funds have to offer and get more private funds to be part of this. And it also depends on how we approach the issue of the money that circulates in the economy of our country. And as someone correctly said, quite a lot of that money is money that comes from black purses, from black people. And how do we get that money to be properly utilized to set up these venture capital and maybe find ways of de-risking them as we ensure that we move ahead with our reindustrialization. So all I can say on this is that we are focused on the manufacturing sector. We want to support more and more people in the manufacturing sector. And those who are black industrialists got grants. And some of them then got easier loans from Tate Kena here, the CEO of the IDC. Right here where we are, this IDC has been a real engine of funding quite a lot of black businesses in the manufacturing sector. And in fact, they have deployed a couple of billions, and they are also supporting our black industrialist programs. So funding will become more and more available within, obviously, our overall budgetary confines. But I am thankful that you've been able to raise these issues in a sharp and pointed way, because that is what we need to be focusing on. My brother from the BLA, I could not agree with you more. We need to be channeling more and more work to our black firms. And all I can say to you is that do not get tired about raising this matter. It seems like it is like turning the Titanic. Sometimes it's a bit slower than I would like to see, but our intent is to ensure that we use our black legal firms, our black lawyers, and through that they will also be able to upgrade their own skills. So we will be moving ahead with that. One of the people spoke, they said they come from Poch. It was my sister here who has set up youth mentorships and franchises. She's going to talk to the Premier, because the Premier has a program that can address some of those things. My other sister spoke about, she's a chemical engineer, spoke about how we are utilizing, some of our firms utilize skills from expatriates on an ongoing basis and utilize the type of skills that can be found here. And I think that's something that we can manage, because I have seen how it is managed in other countries. When some of our companies go out to operate there, they actually limit. They say, yes, for instance, I know of MTN operating in Iran. They said, yes, you can appoint the CFO, but we want to appoint the chief engineer and this one and this one. That helps because it makes sure that the skills in the country are properly utilized, and people who are skilled do find a way of moving up the ladder of the company as well. Now, Eugenia spoke about a pipeline of talent, that we must develop a pipeline of talent, and that is so true. It's something that we've got to get really well accustomed to in our country, to make sure that the older make way for the younger, so that we, the geezers who are sitting up front here, must make way for women and the younger people. So you've got a very good point there. But it's also a succession planning type of process that we need to have. I have found that it is well utilized in the private sector, but it isn't so well utilized in the public sector. In the private sector, when I was there, you would find that a number of people are identified to be the CEOs of the future, say in the company itself, and they are nurtured. They are watched and nurtured and supported and assisted, and in time, it could be CFO, could be whatever, in time then they succeed. We don't do it that well in the public sector. And in fact, in the public sector, it becomes quite a mambo-jumbo type of situation. And we do need to manage succession very well. I mean, just like we manage succession, say in the ANC, Mbalula here used to be in the cabinet. I moved him out to come and run elections. And I said, Mbalula, you are well placed to really get the ANC to win the elections. And he got used to it and he's enjoying it now. Now, that is succession. But he still has a future. He can look forward and say, I've run elections now, where else now? So we do need to look at succession in a very active way and make sure that once people are deployed, they are able to enjoy precisely what they are doing. My brother Khopani here, who specializes on Chapter 9s, I rather enjoyed your input because you are giving us a very fresh view of how you are perceiving or looking at our government structure, particularly the Chapter 9 institutions, which you say are fragmented. And in a number of ways, I think you are right, because they account to different places and different ministers, and also you also deal with DPME, the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation, and all that needs to be looked in a fresh way that you are articulating. You are the type of person that we would want to talk to as we restructure government. You know that we have said we are going to look at the structure of our government. Chapter 9 institutions are constitutional, but in terms of ministries that support them, you could look at how you structure that. But we are currently looking at the structure of our government, looking at the various ministries, and it's a process that is going on very well. We, in the end, want to have an efficient government system that runs well, that delivers the right services to our people, and it must be properly so structured that it's not the bulk that it is now with 30-something ministries. We can do much more than what we are doing with a good number of ministries, and that is what the process is looking at right now. My sister Zianda, who's a food scientist, speaks about something that's very important that I find very appealing. She talks about consumer or customer service. And she says in the private sector it works well, and she's absolutely right. Because in the private sector there are consequences. In the private sector, if you don't provide a good service, the consequence is you could be disciplined in the company, but much more than that, your customer base can start to move elsewhere to another competitor. The public sector is an area that we need to look at. Let me say, we employ more than, say, 1.2 million public servants through the government system. Now, many of the people who work in our public service are truly, truly dedicated. And as you heard from my brother here from Gauteng, they are innovative, they are dedicated, and they know their craft, they know their work. So the majority of them are like that. But there are some who need to be pepped up a little bit more. I remember one time I was still in business coming back from overseas, and I arrive at OR Tambo, and it's early in the morning. I present my passport, and my sister, who was supposed to look at my passport, was sitting there busy eating her sandwich, like an oily sandwich and the cheese and tomato. And then she reached out to my passport, and I said, "Oh, please, my passport now is going to be oily." And she took her time eating her sandwich while I waited, and once she finished, then she stamped my passport. And then I really realized that we've got work to do. We really have work to do because, and she's an exception. The majority of them do their work extremely well, but it is the face of South Africa that you see from abroad when you interface with a person like that. Now, let me say, as we have now decided to meet a number of departments and people in our various departments, we are finding that our civil servants are really energized. As we go in to meet them, I'm finding they're energized, They are embracing the new dawn. Their morale is going up. They've got a better focus. And all we really need to do is to encourage them. I have a great deal of confidence in our civil servants to provide good service to our people. So let us encourage them, and where they make mistakes, let us egg them on so that they provide a better service. We will be talking more and more about Batupili, that we must focus on Batupili, particularly in this new dawn, because this new dawn is about providing the best services to our people. And I want all our civil servants, like all of us as political leaders, to be so dedicated to providing good and the best service to our people as we possibly can. So I think we will begin to see more and more commitment and dedication, and as political leaders in government, we are going to be pepping them up, encouraging our civil servants. And I want to underscore what my brother said earlier, that many of them, by the way, are very clever, well-educated, innovative, and all we need to do is to unlock that talent and energy in them. Ms. Leslie, in mining, spoke about white companies, and he said there are quite a number of white companies that want to participate in this economic transformation that we're talking about. And I think we must applaud Leslie and a number of white South African companies who want to be part of the transformation and say, we want you to be part of this because we are all South Africans. So Leslie, I applaud you, particularly also with the women that you are working with. Thank you very much for continuing to do that good work. Kingsley Tlobata, thank you very much for raising the issue of pharmaceuticals. And you correctly raised the issue of this thing about ARVs. The ANC, at one of its conferences, decided that in view of the huge market that we have created, that is present in our country, we need actually to create a publicly owned pharmaceutical company that is going to make a number of the ARVs and a number of other medical products that our people need. Now that has been slow in coming to life, but when we hear about a company like yours and your colleagues, that fills us with a great deal of encouragement, because we think that with you being there, we are beginning to see that it is possible, it is doable, that we can have black-led and owned companies participating in this field. And to this end, we even whispered that we should be having a discussion with yourselves, because we've heard that you are beginning to roll out some of your outlets, particularly in the townships, and that's precisely what we would like to see. You gave us figures that, in my view, are quite worrying, that there are so many pharmaceutical companies in South Africa, less than 10% of them are black-owned. Now, you fall in the manufacturing sector, and we therefore want to talk to you, because there are quite a number of programs that we think we can be able to participate with you on. So come see us. Let us have a discussion. Yes, my sister George, it was George who said, and this made me feel sad. We send her for training, she comes back, and we don't utilize her. And I immediately said to her, we would like to bring that to an end. If we send you for training, and you go and sharpen your wits, and you are able to stand up against some of the best in the world, and where you can even represent our country in very complicated disciplines like customs and so forth, we would like you to help us show the best side that South Africa can give. And so therefore, for you and others who may feel like government is not really utilizing the skills that you have, we said, come forward. And we've said, we want to listen. We want now to be more practical in terms of listening. We want people to come forward with ideas, and I'm going to be calling for that when I conclude. Young man Aesop, 16 years old, was whispering to us that at his age he has come up with a product that can reduce the utilization of water in large liters. We can save water in a big way. And he has developed that product. And of course, because he's 16, he has no one to fund him. And we want to talk to him because these are the innovators of the future. And we want to create we want, yesterday I was talking about this as well, we want to have an innovation revolution, get young people into the innovation world so that we just get them to innovate. I remember when I became a director of one company, I met somebody in jeans in the passage, and I asked him, what do you do in this company? He says, I do nothing. I said, what do you mean? He says, no, I'm employed to think. He says, I just am here to think. And I said, what do you think about? He says, no, I'm an innovator. So they allow me, I sleep at home for 3 days in a week, and I come back and I tell them what I've been thinking about. So we should have young people who we will give the rope to do things like that and say, go and think, come up with ideas, whether you're 12 years old or 16 years old, we should be able to allow that to happen. And I think that's fantastic. And I'd like to see an innovation system that will just invite young people and just say an innovation hub where we invite young people from age 12 or whatever. Just come and show us what you're capable of creating. I'll tell you, we will find innovators there. Now, I met two teachers from Canada when we went for some meeting in Mexico, and we were talking about IT and computer literacy and so on. They told me, they said, in Canada, we are now exposing 2-year-olds to coding. He says 2-year-olds are now coding, and we start them at that age. And I was flabbergasted, and I said, not at 2 years. They said, yes, it is when they are most creative at 2 years old. So all of you here, including myself, are not as creative as a 2-year-old. So your time has lapsed. Lebohang Morales speaks about the SOE Council. Lebohang, I've heard you. You say we should not overlay a number of structures. The SOE Council is going to, yes, have oversight, but one of the things that the Presidential Review Committee on SOEs recommended a couple of years ago was you must have some coordination. What we are seeking to do is to see the extent to which this SOE Council can help us migrate to what other countries have created in terms of the holdings of their state-owned enterprises. This has been done by Norway, it's been done by Singapore, China has done the same thing, and through that, you are able to begin migrating to a company that is the reservoir of the wealth of your country and operates and oversees a number of state-owned enterprises that operate independently, but where you coordinate uniformity for things such as balance sheet management, things such as the appointment of directors, the remuneration, and the shareholder compacts that you would have. So this is what the SOE Council is meant to do. The oversight will still be conducted by the various other boards and structures and will be assisted by CAs like you, Lebohang. Akashni spoke about the job summit. Yes, we are going to go to a job summit, and I'm glad about the issues that she has raised. The job summit is meant to be one of those summits where we are going to be able to talk seriously about jobs. And I see this job summit as being different from the other job summits that we have had in the past. We need to go beyond just talking about jobs. We now need to be a lot more practical and come up with solutions. One of you did say we want to be able to make a contribution as professionals on how we can create jobs for young people. Now that's music to my ears. That's great music to my ears, because that is what the Job Summit is meant to do. And I will immediately say, whilst the Job Summit will have as participants government, labor, business, and community, I will even want to create a slot for people who are professionals, who are adept at a number of disciplines, who may well have ideas to put to the Job Summit on how we can create jobs. Because the challenge for creating jobs is the one that keeps some of us awake at night and should keep all of us awake at night. We cannot continue having a situation where we have more than 9 million people in our country out of work, and where a good more than 50% of them are young people. So I welcome this notion that it is our common problem. It is our common problem, and if our country has to send us anywhere, it is in job creation where it has to send us. And therefore, I look forward to Akashni, your participation in the Job Summit, and indeed all of us. Ubabu Otto Bangula from NAFU, I just loved to hear what you were saying, because you are right in saying that many places in our country lie derelict. And I, as you correctly said, I watched it in January as we were going around the country meeting a number of our leaders, that many hectares in our country are derelict, they are not being farmed. And therefore, if NAFU is going to join us in this, as we embark on our Agrarian Revolution, we will be most excited, because it is through this that we will be able to create a number of jobs. And in fact, our people in the rural areas say, we don't want much. All you need to do is to give us the enabling instruments, the initial start-up processes, and then we will then take it forward, and we will till the land, and we will employ a number of people. Dr. Tanek, my sister, the bone marrow specialist, who is a doctor, specialist, I could not support you more. We do want more PhDs in your field as well. And you come up with a very good suggestion. How about getting the private sector to help in the qualification, yes, of doctors, particularly in the health sector? And this is precisely what we want. But you also raised another notion which is embedded in the NHI. We're now considering the NHI bill, and would like as many comments as possible on the NHI bill, because the NHI It's really about solidarity. It's about how we make the health burden that we have in our country a collective one, where all of us say we are able, we are willing and prepared to share the burden, particularly of the most vulnerable in our society. Right now, our health sector is facing a huge challenge, possibly one of the biggest challenges we face is in the health sector. In a number of places, some of these hospitals are collapsing, and the pressure that is being brought to bear on our health sector is huge. The other day, Premier Makura and I and others went to Tembisa, and we were able to Tembisa Hospital. We were able to see at close range how our health sector is under a lot of stress, particularly in the urban areas, because the influx of people in the urban areas has gone up so much. For instance, a neonatal section of the hospital that handles premature babies is made to handle 40, and on any given day they have 97. And the space is a major problem, and the budget is so limited, and the NHI in the end, where all of us are meant to contribute to the NHI, is possibly going to be the best savior for all of us. Now, there may well be people who will be opposed to this and worry that, is it going to kill my medical aid? No, it is not going to. They will work in tandem, but all of us will be required to exercise acts of solidarity so that we help the most vulnerable in our society. When NHI does really finally kick in, that is when we will be able to deliver better health services to our people. Finally, my brother who's in the Gauteng government, this GCIA or whatever you call it is not competing with YES. In fact, they can work together. We need to embrace various initiatives that as South Africans we can embark upon. We should never think that government is the only one that should have a monopoly on anything that should happen in the country. We should be supportive of efforts that are going to assist as many of our people to lead a better life and to accede to much better opportunities. So the YES initiative and this one in Gauteng can work in tandem, and in fact they can cooperate and make sure that we give hope to our young people on a comprehensive basis. I want to end by thanking you, but also making a call. And the call I'd like to make is the following. A number of you are professionals. A number of you are skilled in a number of disciplines. Now, we want to utilize your knowledge. We want to utilize your experience. And we are at a stage where we want to harness the strength and the knowledge of all those South Africans who want to make a contribution. I'm grateful tonight that we're sitting here and the majority of you, if not all, have said yes to Mamina. And this is a Tumamina moment for all of us as South Africans. And as professionals, I guess I can say with authority as your president that you have no choice but to be Tumant. You have no choice. You have no choice because our country requires our skills, it requires our participation, and so what we now need to do is to change. While we focus on what needs to be done, we should be saying, what is it that I can do for my country to move South Africa forward? At the same time, yes, we will be raising issues that need to be addressed. And I say this advisedly. I met a lady on the plane one day as I was flying in a SAA flight to Cape Town, and she's in manufacturing, and she has encountered enormous difficulties in her business, where she's even been sidelined dealing with one of our state-owned enterprises. And I said, "You didn't take us to court?" She says, "No, that's not my business. My business is to make my contribution to the success of my country. And where I was shortchanged, pushed aside, I took it in my stride, and I said, I'm going to roll because there's another day, and I now know that I'm going to get a good opportunity in this new dawn. As this new dawn is emerging, new opportunities are going to come for some of us who are in the steel manufacturing sector of our economy." And she said, "Mr. President, all I want to do is to contribute to the reconfiguration of our manufacturing sector." And she said, "Call me and those who are in manufacturing into a task team. Let us sit down with you and discuss the challenges that we have in manufacturing, but more importantly, call us to make proposals on how, through manufacturing, we can move this country forward." Now, that is why I am saying, you have no choice but to make a contribution, to be too mad, but I want it to be better organized. Organize yourself through your various organizations and come forward and make proposals, yes, in this new dawn. Organize yourself as manufacturers. We want to hear your thoughts and proposals. Organize yourselves through, yes, your accountants body. We want to hear how we are going to address unemployment. I'm going to be sitting down with economists, a group of economists, and I've said to them, I just want you to come and tell me how we are going, what we should do to improve the economy of our country, and what we should do to create jobs. And I will be calling on a number of you to come forward and tell us, what is it in your sector you can contribute to get this country moving forward? And this I am going to do on a focused basis, because I respect you for what you are, for the qualifications you have, for the skills that you have, and I want you to contribute. If not me, some of my ministers will be calling on you, because we value your proposals. So you have no choice. You are going to be too mad, whether you like it or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.